Hey folks, this is Tolly and welcome back to some more game dev. Earlier today we did our 2 to 4 stream where we focused on the kind of initial combat cutscene, and we're coming back and probably finishing this one up relatively quickly. Over my dinner break I was thinking about it a lot, and I feel like this cutscene I've been on for like a day and a half. There's been other stuff I've been working on in between, but if I'm gonna get this demo done by January 20 or January 19th, I gotta go faster, and I can't be polishing everything to its absolute limits. We can always come back and revisit some of this stuff later. Now, that being said, this one was a little bit more complicated than a lot of the other cutscenes we'll end up doing, simply because we're kind of injecting a like combat situation in between, essentially. But I still think that although there's more polish to be done here, this is fine. I'd like to disable the player's movement. I'd like to refine some of the moments when like the grid turns on when combat starts. There's some issues which I haven't really seen, but I know are happening with the music, because we trigger a music here, but then we'll trigger a combat music when the grid turns on. So there's some like overriding we need to do where it's like cutscene music needs to be higher priority than just battle music, I think. But even here, it does work. If we don't hit breakpoints, let's just stop debugging. Like, we can punch the enemy a couple of times, and then we get beat up, and the cutscene will end. So it is functional, and you can get through it, which is probably good enough for now. I think I'd like to see if we can quickly disable the player's movement. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to be an easy thing to do, but I want to take a quick look to see if we already have a sequence step that could kind of do that behavior. We used to have a very old player input sequence step. Wait on player input. That's not what we're looking for. There's one that was stopping the player's input. Was that inside of cutscenes? Set player control. Does this do anything anymore, or is it completely deprecated? Oh, well, that worked. So this is setting gameplay paused inside of some dungeon state manager. And is this being referenced anywhere? Technically speaking, it's preventing the turn from progressing, so that's not what we want, because that's going to prevent the player from being able to attack. And so we need some sort of system to prevent movement but allow the player to still perform their attack actions. So we do not have an easy path there. I thought we could repurpose that, but we can't. We have two other options. Option number one is what I wanted to do in the first place, which is we should make a status effect that prevents player movement but still allows attacking. I think that'll be useful for different enemies to be able to apply to the player, or potentially even for the player to apply to enemies in the future. There could be a cool, like, you know, snaring attack that Hero could do, which could be useful. But I think that is a little ambitious, and I do want to just keep moving forward and building more cutscenes. I'd like to get, like, now that we're done some of these more complicated ones, where I had to build a bunch of new tech, especially for this room where we have this cutscene with the guards. This one here was a fair amount of new tech in terms of getting the walk-in, walk-out for the enemies working. But now that this one and the combat one are out of the way, I'm hoping that we can move through the other cutscenes I want to build much more quickly. Yeah, I also built like the little UI indicator of like a noise. Yeah, this one needs refinement too, but I can't get stuck on them. I need to move on. Okay, so all that being said, there's option one, which is create a new status effect and apply it to the player that blocks movement, or option 2 is we write some sort of hard-coded like sequence step that like sets some bool on like the screen controller or something, and it doesn't send directional input while that bool is set. I don't love that one. Okay, I guess the question is, does this break? I don't believe it does, but does this break if we try and move? I'm pretty sure it'll trigger an attack of opportunity from the enemy, which will in turn trigger the cutscene. And I think it all plays out correctly as what we saw during the stream earlier today. And if that's the case, I'm willing to say we move on for the time being, and we move on to the next cutscene. Right, gotta move. Yeah, so trying to move provokes an attack of opportunity, and we do get shifted. Yeah, so this cutscene works even if we don't have the movement disabled the way I want. So I think we move on. Now, when we come to this Goddess Realm scene, we do have an issue, which is it's playing the first one, because I do not have a setup currently to play the returning cutscene. We're going to need to look at using my debug flag setting system. What is it called? Combat test. So if we look at this one as an example, we also have first run. What flags is this setting? This is setting first return complete, boot complete, clock tutorial complete. Yeah, this is all good. I think the main one we mostly care about is the boot intro, if we're going to test, I think the next one being first return. So I'm going to make a new copy of this, and we're going to call this Demon Castle Complete. And we're going to make this our override. And the flags that we care about is we want to make sure that boot intro is true. I don't think we've done the clock tutorial yet, so we can remove that one. We don't need the player status tutorial. I don't think this one has been triggered yet. Starting ability selected. That is not going to be the case anymore. This one has been renamed. We made a new version of this. I guess the Demon Lord Castle ones don't matter as much about making sure those flags are correct, but I would just like to have this be an accurate representation of the player's current state. So, where are my cutscenes? This is all screens. We don't care about the front end right now. In fact, we don't care about any of this scripting section. We want to find these ones. So yeah, we renamed this to Demon Castle Intro. Ooh, what I should do to make this easier as we scroll up and down is I should lock this here. Okay, so this is now going to be completed. Exit room is completed. We have not done the clock tutorial, so that one can go. Generic out of time completed. That's not true. That's fine. Technically, there's a couple of new ones for Pt.2 that we should track. I don't remember what clock disabled is for. And we don't need this forest one. Okay, I believe once we remove this one, these are the cutscenes we should have already triggered by this point. The guard one is also another one. So this should be a good representation of the save state of the player by the time they finish going through the Demon Lord's castle. TO1 intro, exit, guards, intro, omni weapon, end, battle end. Okay, yeah, so now if we jump to the Goddess Realm and hit play here, it should trigger the first return cutscene. Hello to Stamina Candy over on the YouTube side. Hope you're having a good evening. Okay, yes. So this is the first return cutscene. Now, I believe this one is broken. Yeah, this one's broken. Yeah, and does not finish completely. This is because we remapped all the positions in here, and I had fixed up a lot of the cutscenes, but I missed this one. So we need to go do a quick validation on this one. First return. Oh, I also want to grab a very simple screenshot of just this section. Just gonna grab a quick reference of this and have this off camera to one side as I figure out the positions here. So this one has some dialogue, has the hand clock, which has the goddess going to 11:09, which is where Hero is standing. This is now 11:10 is where she should be moving to. She plays the interact animation, we play a particle, we set clock tutorial to complete. Then moves back to tile 11:11 and then faces south towards Hero again, advances some dialogue. She's playing this death animation, which eventually will be her collapsing down to one knee, not just dying, but that's fine. This is the clock disabled, not started. Not sure why we're doing these flag sets. They may no longer be needed. And then we're revealing tile 11:6 and 11:5. Technically this is 11:7 and a level 11:6 now. But I'm not even 100% sure we need to be revealing those. Wait, did we change this one actually? Oh, did it autosave already? I'm going to do a quick check. But I think we may not want to be modifying this. Unlockable characters with the hydrate, which it looks like I missed. I will also get that real quick. Okay, I reverted any changes we made to this file. Yeah, okay, so the prefab version of this is out of date. This is the way we're doing it now. I'm going to just clean up this one. I think this cutscene is simple enough that we don't actually need the prefab for it, and it's just going to create more confusion in the future. So yeah, we're going to quickly update this again. This will be going to 11:10 and then back to tile 11:11. And then there's no more data here for any more movement or any more tile revealing, because instead this cutscene ends with the goddess immediately teleporting us instead of opening up the way to the checkpoint area, because we don't want to unlock that yet. Perfect. So now we should be able to hit play here, and hopefully this will play out correctly. Now I want to check my notes off camera. What else do I want to do to this one, if anything? The dialogue, I have revamped a little bit, but I think it's mostly the same beats. I've more tweaked the lines, but the content is relatively the same. Okay, and the clock has not appeared yet. Oh, what are we... It's still broken. Oh, we have another cutscene we trigger, which is teleport player generic. Oh, neat. I was complaining this felt like it could be repurposed. I had already set this up to be repurposable. Okay, so then we can look at the boot intro version, because we renamed that prop to give it a better name, which is Flame Circle. So now this doesn't even care what prop location, like it's not based off of the place in the world. This is just going to find a prop named Flame Circle and activate it. I think this could be reused as part of the Omni Weapon cutscene that we did as well now. I'm not gonna, it's fine. We're not gonna spend forever fixing things, but we do need to just tweak all of these, and we have, so that all looks good. So now this cutscene should work. It's mostly, for these first few, I feel like we're getting stuck on like renames and updating to have this be more consistent with the kind of better workflows I've created since we worked on these maps originally. My hope is when we hit the forest where we're generating new cutscenes that are fully bespoke, or even just working on some cutscenes in the forest that are a little bit more recently made, that will hopefully run into less of these weird bugs. Okay, so the clock is appearing a little early. Oh, this is going to be fun. We need to find a way to make this more visible during this moment. I'm going to start here. When does the clock actually pop into existence? Is it right at the very end? Is it that clock disabled flag that we're setting that's causing it to be hidden until that is set, maybe? Yeah, so does it show up right as the teleport is happening? That's the question. Yes, it does. Okay, so this is preventing the UI from appearing. I think I want to save that until this moment. I think I might want it to appear and then open in response to that dialogue. Let me double check my notes. Yeah, I do. I want to move this. So we're going to delete this entry, but before we do that, we're going to move it to Forest F8 is the location. Clock tutorial. This is the opening of the watch. If we add a... backend set flag, and then go grab the flag name, clock disabled, and set that to not started, and maybe add a slight delay in between these steps, just so there's a little bit of room for it to appear before the clock opens up. Maybe like just a 0.2, 20th of a second, and then we can remove that flag from the first return cutscene. Clock tutorial complete. Why are there two different flags? So one problem I have with my flag system that I've noticed over time is that it works really well until you've modified some stuff and come back to it, and then you're like, what did I set this up for? And like tracking down where things are being used is kind of like a concern that I did not see when I built the system. Interesting. I feel like this is supposed to be showing up immediately when the goddess moves back to position. Right, okay, no, I do remember how this works. So clock tutorial is what's gating the UI from appearing, or it should be, and then clock disabled is actually in charge of making it so that when hero moves, the clock ticks down, and we have the clock disabled for the first little bit, so you can't run out of time while you're exploring the Demon Lord's castle area. So at this moment, it should be displaying. Let's go take a look. Clock display. Clock tutorial required flag complete. Where does this get used? As a part of combat base. And this is a generic component. So how does the generic components get updated? I'm gonna guess because we're in a cutscene, this screen is not being refreshed the way that I think it should. Yeah, it just gets initialized. So if it's a generic screen component that just gets initialized, nothing's ever calling refresh on it? Yeah, nothing manually calls refresh on it. It's not used in any kind of parent class either. So I'm going to guess the init call calls refresh. It does. So yeah, when it's initialized... Oh, it also has a flag callback event. Oh. When it receives a indication that its flag has been set, it should be refreshing. So when clock tutorial is set to complete, it should call this refresh function and then it should find that all the flags are valid because it just got set to completed, and it should turn on. Interesting. Oh, right, no, and this makes sense because when we open the cutscene, it's closing this screen, which is terminating all the generic screen components. So it's not currently active, and it is not listening for that event. Yeah, okay, so some of the bugs we're running into are really just the fact that I'm trying to add this, like, extra screen here whenever we're in major cutscenes with the black bars, and I feel like it's just breaking a lot of our stuff. Okay, how do we want to solve this? My feeling is that the cutscene screen should be an overlay so that this stuff is still running in the background. But when we tried to do that in the previous stream today, it broke in some really unintuitive ways. The black bars are an overlay. They are essentially just a screen, like any other screen in my UI, like pause screen or anything like that. It just switches from the combat base screen, which is kind of the one we use to navigate the world. Essentially, the whole input system is really handled by the screen system. But the cutscene is essentially just when you open it, it's an empty screen that does nothing, but just has the black bars slide in from the top and the bottom as two UI pieces, essentially. Let's go back to this one, and I'm gonna try... We're going to disable this. And I just want to see again, how does this break when we turn the cutscene into an overlay? It's going to hit these breakpoints a whole bunch, it seems. We're going to just move on from that. All right. Yeah, so right now what's actually happening, if we take a look in the UI, essentially somewhere in here, I guess the UI screens, front end screens, cutscene, these components are essentially turned on. By default, I think these are off. Yeah, and these top and bottom bars are usually just like slightly outside of the screen, and then when we enter into the screen, we have like a transition system that will slide these into position. Because technically every screen we have, they're all here, but most of their components are actually turned off. But the actual screen itself is available. And if we go into a screen that is not marked as an overlay, it will close the previous screen and open the new screen. But if we go into a screen that is an overlay, it technically leaves the other screen open and just does the transition logic. But it leaves all of its components active and refreshable, essentially. Right. Okay, so the major thing that breaks here is we don't get the status bar from this enemy. That's the issue with trying to turn it into an overlay. But then otherwise everything else works. And so the reason that's breaking is because the display via active component is not getting reinitialized, I think. Oh, even worse than that, actually. I'm not 100% sure it's even creating a status bar if we're not in that screen. But when we go from cutscene to the, like when it closes for combat to start, it essentially does the open on it, which triggers the status bar to be created. But if we make the screen a overlay like I wanted to, then it will never create the status bar. That's the player's status bar. Status bar manager. So this one's a big pack, but essentially it's checking the state machine for combat, checks to see if there's any units. If there are any units, it will create a status bar component for that unit. Okay, so is this code just not being run? I'm gonna guess that when we... No, that doesn't make sense either. Okay, I'm gonna dig. We're gonna look at what's happening when we're running. Because my intuition here is failing. I'm not 100% sure what's happening, so we're just going to look at it rather than try and figure it out in my head. In my head. Okay. Step 1. Is there a status bar when we first load in? Like, technically speaking, it should generate one for the enemy. Seeing as this is here, I do think this is actually attached to the enemy. Yes, this is where it would be. That's about where it should be when we were looking at it earlier in the previous stream today. So it is here, but it's just turned off. And it's turned off because of the display via active. If we toggle this on, it does display. Okay. We are hitting this every frame? Oh, interesting. This is updating the status bars constantly. We wrote all this code for event refreshing, and I don't think it even mattered. I mean, it kind of matters because we need to reset the should display. Okay, weird. Okay, that's fine. So it's constantly hitting this. That's okay. So then when we come forward, at some point when we... actually trigger the ogre. Oh, weird. It's constantly switching between idle and patrol, so it's constantly notifying the UI that it's changed states. Which I guess doesn't matter because it only really displays it if the enemy is aggressive. Okay. We're gonna trigger this. And then we're gonna add back in this breakpoint, and we're also gonna make sure we have a breakpoint outside of this if statement. So at some point, this enemy should switch to combat. The state it's trying to go to is the attack state, and then it's going to send a message. Attack state. Why is the message not being heard by... Oh, right. No, duh. Because the object isn't enabled. Right. So what's happening is this component, I copied the on death setup, but this only really cares about turning it off. And because it's disabled, it removes its listener. So we actually want to set this up to be on init and on terminate. I just have to validate whether or not this is being initialized and terminated correctly. So if we look at the status bar, and we look at this status bar manager, does this call init on the status bar components? It calls refresh. It does allocate them. Does allocating a poolable screen component also call init on it? I believe it does. Yeah, because it's a poolable object, it'll try and call the init interface as well. Okay, so then if that's the case, we should be able to go in here, and instead of putting these callbacks on enable and disable, we should be able to put them on init. I need an example. I need an example component that uses init. Not this one. Something to do with stats probably has a init call, if I had to guess. So many screen components. What about align to unit? No. Oh, yes, this has the init and the terminate. Okay, cool. Align to unit is a good example. So if we go into here, we need an init function set up like this, and we need a terminate function set up like this. Okay. We don't care about any of this or any of this. We only care about the add and remove observer calls, and they should be... All right, let's not break everything. We're going to leave the on death ones to be where they were. They probably should be moved up here eventually, but for now we're just going to focus on fixing the bug, not refactoring the whole system. I do want to double check that terminate's being called. I'm going to guess when we clear the poolable object and deallocate it, we call terminate. We do. Perfect. The only other question is it going to call terminate on this? It won't, because we're opening an overlay, so it won't call close on combat base screen. So yeah, so this should work. So if we have the initialization of these observers for these events to happen on init and on terminate, init will be true, or this will get called and will not call the terminate until the screen actually closes. Unlike on enable and on disable, which will get called as the object gets turned on and off, and this is literally turning the object on and off. So yeah, this should be safer. Let's give this a shot. Because I do think the cutscene stuff should be an overlay. It should not be essentially taking full control of the UI. It should just be essentially a very simple visual thing that is not actually commandeering input or anything like that. Okay, I am going to put these breakpoints back once we actually get to the right point in the cutscenes. Also, really quick, I just want to change the intro dialogue here so that these are both top center, because I don't like the dialogue clipping into the black bar. Cool. I've been meaning to do that for a while. Just going to do it real quick there. Okay, floating game screen. Ogre comes in. We're going to put a breakpoint here, and we're going to put a breakpoint here. But we should visually be able to see it if we've done this right. We're hitting that breakpoint. We have not done something right. Fine. We'll start from the very beginning. Is it actually initializing and terminating when I think it is? Okay. It gets initialized, but with stored data equal to null. Okay. This is fine. So what's happening is that this check is supposed to be here to make sure that we don't end up trying to use stored data, which we copied from the anchor to unit setup. But I think in this situation we can add this observer, and even if our unit data is null, it's fine because we won't refresh until we have valid data anyways. So in this context, it's okay. I do run into this a lot. This is like a flaw with my UI system, that like init sometimes cares what data you will eventually have, but update data is the moment that we actually give you that information. And so it feels like sometimes there's almost like an init level 1, which is like initialized with no data, and then I almost feel like I need a secondary init for when we're updating. I don't know. It just, there's a weird tension there that I have yet to figure out how to fully resolve. But just removing the null check should actually hopefully have the event set up correctly in time. We do run into a problem where the enemy spots us midway through its walk, and I'd like to have more control over when combat starts, but again, that's more of a polish thing. We'll figure that out later. I mean, realistically, having the enemy's UI show up at all is a bit of a polish thing, but it's more, it's a bigger deal to me because seeing how many turns until the enemy actually goes is like a big part of what this cutscene is trying to accomplish. It wants to kind of start introducing the player in a quote-unquote safe space to the kind of core mechanic. So we kind of do need to fix this. Okay, so we hit the transition, that's fine. We did not hit the init. Alright. Little confused on why we didn't get that. Well, even though we didn't hit the init data... Oh, I didn't have a breakpoint there. It got moved because of removing the if statement. Fine. Alright, so we're going to take this away. We're going to take this away. As long as we don't hit remove at some point here, which I don't think we should be able to anymore. Yeah, it appears as combat starts, which is when the enemy spots us midway through its move. And then everything does properly go away when combat ends and this cutscene begins. Okay, so that is working. Cool. So now, that all being done, we can go back to our debug mode, turn back on this set of flags, and go back to the Goddess Realm. And we should be able to see the clock up here when the goddess hands it to us. Even though we're in the cutscene, because the cutscene's now an overlay and it'll still update the components. We do run into the problem that the black bars are covering the watch, which I'm going to have to think of a solution for. But that's more of a design problem than my code not working. Yes. Okay, so as soon as she hands us that thing, the clock appears. Same thing here. The clock opening is obscured by the cutscene. Easy fix is probably just to have the clock be shifted up with the black bar. I'm a little concerned of it looking a little blurry as it moves, but let's give it a quick try. Because we are not pixel aligning the UI properly yet. It is a task I have on my backlog that I want to get to at some point. We make sure that the world and all the 3D geometry and the billboards and everything are pixel perfect, but I have not done a similar pass to make sure that the UI is pixel perfect, which realistically should be easier. Okay, screen transitions. When we open the cutscene from combat base screen, we call open cutscene. And this triggers the bars to move up and down. Triggers something called calendar display to move. Interesting. Did I already have some code that was kind of doing this? It looks like we might have. Let's go to the UI. Can we find something called calendar display? If I can type. We did. What was this? Oh, neat. This was originally, we did have a concept of like a day, morning, evening kind of thing before we moved to like the stopwatch. And this was the calendar display. Okay, so yeah, if we go into this clock display, we could probably just give this an entity ID. Entity ID, we'll call this clock display. Hopefully that isn't already used somewhere else, but I'd be surprised if it is. And then when we open this screen, we want to slide Actually, I'm going to just add a new UI translate and leave the old one there in case we ever do go back to some sort of system like that. I doubt it, but I don't want to be destructive at this point. So I want this to be a non-blocking slide. And then how much are we sliding these bars up? We're translating them up by -40. So if we do the same translation over the same amount of time, it should look like the clock moves up with it. Unlockable characters in Twitch chat says, lol, the amount of times you have found code already made for what you're trying to do, or for trying to accomplish. It is the problem with doing this over multiple years and not being consistent with the time I put into it. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but it often does feel like archaeology, where I'm like, oh yeah, I did do this. Or at least something close to it. It may not be exactly the same, but... Now for this one, I want to try and line this up with... wherever we do the move down. Bottom bar, blocking. We want to do this before that. We want this one to be non-blocking so that it'll trigger this translation and then trigger this translation, and this one will be the thing that pauses until we're done. But these will overlap. We want to move this down because I guess 40 in the Y is down the screen based off what I'm seeing here from this example. And I think that's all we need, honestly. And because this is part of the screen change, this means every time we go to the cutscene from the combat, it will do this just automatically. It's part of my screen system. So the clock will just move. Now, we may want to do the same thing with the abilities or something. So the ability buttons slide in and out or slide up and down when we go into this screen. I'll figure that out when we get there. But right now, this one's a little bit more important than the abilities because we want to be showing it to the player. So at this point, it should have already moved the object even though it's disabled. Well, we moved it the wrong way, but we did move it. I'm pretty sure we moved it the wrong way. Let's see what happens when we actually finish the cutscene. Yeah, we moved it the wrong way. Cool. Got our data wrong. So this one should be... not that one. This one should be +40 then. Should just be a matter of flipping them. And this one should be -40. If I wanted to, I could even have it like appear in the center of the screen and then slide into the corner as part of this cutscene, but we're not doing that right now. I don't even know if that would look good, to be honest. Okay. Oh yeah, I have a dialogue update I want to do here too. Yeah, and so that now appears in the bottom left. And then when we exit, it slides down. And then when we enter into here, it should slide back up before animating open. Yep. And now when the cutscene ends, it should slide back into position. Easy. Is that perfect? Is that polished? I don't know, but it works. It's visible. You can see it. It's not being overlapped or covered. Let's do the dialogue update. Let me find my data. Where's my notes for dialogue? My dialogue notes. What did I want to change this to? Where is this dialogue asset? That's going to be, I think it was above where we were, because it's in here. We can close down the Demon Castle stuff. We should be good with that for a while. And then here, this is what I'm looking for. Unlock this. I'm gonna just get rid of the capital on 1. This is the same line. This is the same line. This is the same. This becomes a conduit of sorts. It'll be faster to show than to explain. And then we have little time, but we will have infinite time to chat. For now, you must go. And that is fine. It looked like it was a 1-to-1 in terms of replacements. So this should end at the same point. If we open up some of these closed dialogues, it should update more correctly. And it ends on, we have little time. Cool. There's probably spelling errors in here too. I need to do a full dialogue pass, but these are some notes that I felt were better, at least than what we were using before. Cool. So that's that cutscene done. What'd that take me? An hour? I mean, I kind of had to go back and fix the previous cutscene again, but mostly, I think we're going to get quicker. A lot of these issues are because I'm adding extra stuff, but I think we're going to stop adding here soon, I hope. And we're just going to be reusing the same stuff. Okay, so we come into here. Technically, we have one more big piece of functionality we're going to be adding in the next cutscene. I think I did a pass on it already, so it might not be too bad, but we will see. Feels like this is pretty close to where Hero is, but I kind of don't hate that. Oh, you know what? Actually, this might be a problem. Okay, we're gonna have to see. Yeah, this is gonna be an issue. Man, I just want to build cutscenes and have it be easy. So if we go to this scene, we can move on to this room. And from here, we need to update our debug. Which I have lost again. I shouldn't have unlocked it. Scripts, front end, tools. Tools? Debug? Where did I put it? And it's going to just be faster to search. Demon Castle complete. I was looking in the wrong folders. Okay, so here we can add another one, and this will be the first return complete. So we have done that first return is done. So now in this spot, if we just hit play, we should see that initial load in Oh, we need to set the same flags that that cutscene sets, though, in order for the clock to actually appear. Okay, that's fine. We know what they are. So we're going to lock this one here again. And then first run, we need to have clock tutorial completed. And we need to have clock disabled, not started, so that we don't have the clock disabled. Cool. Now we should be able to be in a good state where we've essentially gone through the first few runs, or the first little section with the Demon Lord's Castle. We've done the first return, and now we're loading in here, and this should be approximately the same setup. I should do a full playthrough at some point, though, just to validate everything's working in sequence, not each room individually is working. But for now, let's just move forward. Okay, so this loads, that slides up. This is still opening okay, that's great. Cool. This one has a pretty major overhaul though. So this is F8 clock tutorial. This dialogue is... Let's add a new inspector. Okay. Where's my notes? Okay, great. Now I'm in a forest. What did she give me? This is when the clock should appear, or when the clock should open. Or the watch. And then Hero can say a watch. Then I want Hero to move, and then we're going to have this line of dialogue where Hero says it seems to tick down as I move. Then we're going to have the goddess speak, which is the new tech. Which should, by typing in goddess, should try and find the goddess container or goddess sprite in the world and not find a goddess in this scene. And so it should default to having her dialogue box come through the clock. Is some tech that I built a while ago, but have not had a chance to really honestly build with beyond just testing it. I don't love some of this dialogue, but we're going to go with it for now. We're going to do, let's see. I think we want top left for the clock. Then Hero is top center, top center. This one should probably be top center as well. In terms of closing and opening, I think this one can be stay open. Oh, did I delete one, two? Oh, I think I saved over one that I wasn't supposed to. Duplicate array. Duplicate array element. It's not doing what I think it should be doing. Okay, let's click on this one. And then duplicate array element. At some point I accidentally overwrote the a watch line. So this one can close self. Then this one will move. This one can stay open because there will be no movement. And then this one will be a stay open. This can be a stay open. Then we have a line from the goddess. And then we have a line from Hero. Oh no, there's one more. There's one more line from the goddess. Okay. Just gonna review this again real quick. Stays open, stays open, stays open, stays open, stays open, close all. Let's just try that for now. I don't think that's going to be right. And then we want to make sure the goddess is top left for all of these, I think. I'm pretty sure that's the setup I want. Top left. Is that right? She has 3 lines in this section? Yeah, she has 3 lines. Cool. So then if we go back into the clock tutorial, I think this is right. Commenting on it, opening the watch, advancing the dialogue, and then I want to have the move. So we're going to do a cutscene, navigate to... Honestly, it can just be navigate to direction. It's technically more efficient. And we're going to have hero move west, I believe. This is going to be affecting the player, so the player will move west 1 time. That should, in theory, have the clock advance. I hope. Oh, I don't know if it is, actually. We might need to do something. Oh, we haven't really... We've been in the Demon Lord Castle for so long with the clock being disabled. I hadn't really thought about this, but... Does the clock advance during... cutscenes? I think so. Oh, there's implications to that. At least for this one, though, we might need to write a sequence step that just ticks the clock once, along with hero moving 1 space. Yeah, I'm gonna have to write some code for that, I think. Okay, then what do we... Then we just have a lot of dialogue back and forth. Let's just change this to, like, 5. 6... Okay, so there's 6 more lines of dialogue after this. I feel like it's going to be a bit boring if it's just back and forth dialogue. So I'm probably going to want to add some animations and movement in here somehow. Let's see it. Let's see what it does. And then we'll go from there. Ooh, got an idea. Okay, cool. Let's still see it first, but I'm gonna inject some reaction from hero after the goddess speaks. I think that's an easy win. The problem is these are gonna overlap, I think. Yeah, this scene is gonna be a pain if it happens in this corner of the map. I don't know if there's much I can do about that. We've built a whole next room around this being the starting point. Okay, well, what if we... What if we break this into 2 cutscenes? What if we have the goddess start speaking to Hero once Hero enters the next room? I feel like I want it to be a call and response to Hero investigating how this watch works, and then her just chiming in nonchalantly. I guess we could try and have her dialogue display here along the side of the watch. Yeah, because on this screen, we'd have tons of room for the dialogue for the goddess here, and for Hero to be able to speak. But we're going to need to find solutions to this situation regardless, because there's gonna be spots where we're gonna be talking to the goddess on the left side of the map. I think that's just, like, there's a number of maps that are set up that way. Like, F5? Technically it's in the top left. No, that's the exact same location. Yeah. Is our UI in the wrong spot, maybe? What happens if we have the UI in the top left? How much room do we get doing that? I think I like the clock being on the bottom left because it mirrors the button inputs on the bottom right. So if we were to move the clock up to the top left of the UI, we'd probably want to move the combat UI as well. I think we run into the same problem either way. Like, if we go in here to the UI, look for the clock display. And then just, I guess change this to pivot so that I can more easily drag it up. If we move it up to, say, here, we're still going to run into problems with Hero clipping into this dialogue. We could flip this one so that Hero is speaking from the bottom bubble, but there's still not going to be a ton of room for the goddess to speak. And just by having the clock move with these black bars, it just ends up digging into the playable space a lot more than it normally does. Maybe it should be that the dialogue from the goddess is actually coming from the left. Because we're going to have space down here. What would that look like in this setup? Dialogue. We could move the arrow to be left of it. And she would be basically speaking along the bottom of the screen, something like that position. And then mostly just for curiosity, if we did grab the arrow, this is currently also being manipulated by something, I think. No, I think it's the same thing we already just turned off. Might want to redraw it, but I don't hate that. I think it could be positioned anywhere here and it'll be fine. Okay, so we could have the goddess speaking by having her dialogue box go across the side of the watch. But if we were in this screen, it would be likely that that dialogue box would cover Hero here. Okay, so we need to be able to do either. We need to be able to have that dialogue box be either to the left of the clock or above the clock, depending on the situation and the scene and the placement of Hero, etc., etc. I thought I was gonna be ready to build stuff, but this is a pretty big next step. Like the thing I realize is, if you've watched before, a lot of our cutscenes in the even last year's demo where we had a more linear tutorial space with not a lot going on, there was still mostly Hero speaking to himself. And now I found that when I was writing a lot of dialogue, if we just have the goddess speaking to Hero, it ends up creating a lot more interest. Rather than Hero just speaking to himself, we can have that back and forth, which I think is just more interesting, both to write and to read. Yeah, we also need these dialogue boxes to move, because right now this is kind of hard-coded, I think, to be just here, but it kind of needs to have its offset change in the same way the clock display is moving up and down with the cutscene bars. Unless we only ever show this during a cutscene. Yeah, maybe. Regardless, I need to figure out how to move this. How do I even do that? Dialogue box? Are you in control of the positioning? This is some real old code. This is all about updating, but what happens if we can't find the entity? Oh, is this it? Default anchoring. Yeah. So we essentially... Yeah, we have some default positions, basically. Okay. What are those actual positions located at? Where are those? Dialogue. This doesn't look right. We don't need these breakpoints here anymore. They can go away. Why is that portrait, like, back in the Z value? Did I do that for a specific reason? Odd. It does render properly, though. It's definitely behind it. I'm surprised that's working. Okay. So what are those default parameters? Right now I've basically hard-coded in specific spots where the dialog box should appear. And they should be up 40 from where they were originally because of the cutscene bars now. Question is it up or down? I think it's up, so... That's not right. Okay, maybe it is. Let's just try that. You know what, I'm okay if we just have to have two hard-coded set locations for this, for the time being. Long term, yes, it would be great to have some sort of like entity lookup system that can say, here's the spot where I want it to position, and like I can have different spots on the UI where it could be placed. But I think for today, and for honestly this sprint of a couple of weeks, I just want it working. Okay, so that is now positioned in the right spot where I intended it to be, but it is very much blocking hero still. So this is fine for this set of positions. We need a left aligned version. We're just going to call this side. Okay. And then we're going to use this. It should still have a sprite alignment associated with it. If it's center right, we should use our other values. Else return these ones. Side medium. Side large. Okay. Now, when it does the arrow position, this arrow offset size flipper, whatever this thing's doing, this kind of is deciding its flipped rotation. What determines its placement? Because something else must be deciding where this object is aligned to. Oh no, this is just adding an amount of Y to give room for the flip, or for the arrow, but this is not actually the arrow's positioning stuff itself. That is in here, and this does not look to change ever. Okay. It looks like we never implemented left and right. I'm gonna need to do that in order for the... Okay. Let's figure that out. We're gonna do it in editor, figure out the math here, and then we'll bring it over into code. Unlockable characters with the hydration I missed 15 minutes ago. I appreciate it. I still appreciate it even though I missed it. I am focused. Okay. So, what is determining this object's position? We say that it is here, and it is being anchored at -275 by -25, and it's being adjusted probably because of the arrow. So that looks okay. So then whatever value this is, That's the value we want to put in here. So if we want this thing to be left of the clock, we're going to need to turn off this thing because it's auto anchoring it every frame. We're going to need it somewhere around here, I think, which looks to be about -100 if we want it to be a bit even with these, and -100. How does that look in here? I mean, it could be down a little bit, I think. Just trying to look at where it is here with these 2 pixels. Let's go to scene view. Go 2D. It's about center. It looks like it's going, the top line here is about with this pixel, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps down, and this one goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps down. Yeah, that's actually pretty close to center. So it looks like if we want this to be a side aligned, we want -100 by 105. This isn't going to stick, though. We need to actually make this modification inside of the original prefab, which we don't even need to go into. We can just do that right here from the topmost level. So we will hard set these values as the 2 sets. I assume I gave 2 different sets of values because if it's a small text box, we may need to position it closer. Yeah, because I think originally I had set this up and it felt like when it was smaller, it should be shifted, but then I ended up deciding, you know what, actually, it didn't matter. But in this situation, I think it will. So we should try different goddess text box sizes to see if we need to adjust these. But for medium, I think this is going to be correct. Now, the actual arrow itself is going to be trickier. So what is the arrow's current... clicking towards it is not going to be very quick. We should just go in here, open up this one, click on the arrow. So it is currently -1 on the X, 2, 10, and 10. So if we do 1, that flips it the other way. Okay, so we want to flip it so it's facing here. Is there a way to do that without rotating it? That's going to flip it over that axis. Yeah, that's not yeah, we're only ever going to flip it left, right, or up and down. So if we want this to be pointing here, honestly, we should have a different asset, because rotating something that's made of pixels is not smart. It would be in the Z axis though. It's fine, and I don't love that direction, so it would be probably... Oh, it would be -1, and this one needs to be 1? Yeah. Alright, fine. So if we come into here, we want the alignment for the arrow if we are specifically... What did I say? Right center is the value I ended up using here? Yeah, right center. If we're right center, we're only going to implement this version. We want the arrow's min and max anchors. Why are we modifying the min and max anchors normally? What is that doing? Was that changing this value? Yeah, that's choosing these. So we want to go 0, 7.5, 0.25, or is it going to match? Yeah. I want it to overlap with this black pixel on the edge here. So then we can do 0.15, 0.15. Does that do it? No, that moves that anchor pretty far in. 0.05? Still way too far. 0.1? 0.1? Yeah, too far. Okay, well, what if we just do an alignment of like 1 pixel in? Does that end up getting what we want? Close. What if we did 2? Yeah, that lines up. So we want to set our anchors to 0.75, 0.75, and then 0, 0 for the X. So in here, we're going to do, let's copy this one. 0, 0, 0.75 float. And then for the position, we want a value of 2. And we don't need a position here of Y because we kind of zoned in exactly where we want with the anchors. Now for the scale, we're going to want 1, -1, 1. This looks correct. And then sadly, unless we get a different image, which I actually think is the right way to do this, we're going to want to do rotation. Probably local rotation is going to be equal to... how do I do this again? It's been a while. New quaternion dot Euler? Or is it just quaternion dot Euler? There was also a Euler angles. What's the difference? Rotates around the axis in that order. We're going to just try this one and see what happens. And I believe we want 0, 0, 90. So we'll give that a try. Okay. Why are you complaining? Oh, because there's multiple versions. Okay, sure. So this should position the arrow in the exact same spot that we have it positioned now. Let's give this a try. Drixie might want to rebuild all this at some point too. It's also very possible. But it'll need to be functional for her to be able to change it. Okay. Does it just work? Probably not. It has not been the last few times. Last few days it has been a bit of a journey to get anything new up and running. Granted, this was kind of partly working to begin with, but even still. I guess this isn't really touching like the tile movement or the animation systems or turning on and off combat. This is really just positioning a UI element, so hopefully this is not as complicated as some of the other stuff we've been dealing with. Okay, cool. We need to actually change the values in the cutscene in order for this to actually show us anything at all. So in here, clock tutorial, goddess should now, sorry, clock tutorial dialogue, goddess should now be right center for I think all of these. And for the purposes of testing, we're going to do small for this one. Change this to close all. We're going to do medium for this one. We're going to do close all. We're going to do large for this one. The text is probably going to overflow in some of these, but that's fine. We're mostly looking for the dialog box's position, not whether or not the dialogue fits right now. Please just work. Okay, small did not work. Let's dig into that real quick. I'm gonna guess it just needs a different offset position from medium. I'm not super concerned about this one. So yeah, it is being set to the right position. Little weirded out that the Y is so different. Actually, can we just change that live here to see it change? Oh, we can. That's fun. -70. -70. 5. Weirdly, -78 actually looks the most correct to me. Okay, and then the arrow is flipped the wrong way. What did we get wrong there? I am pretty happy that it's positioned in the right spot for the most part, though. Looks like the value was -1. I guess this just keeps its original scale, whatever it was. And I guess by default, its original scale was actually -1. Okay. That's unfortunate, because if we make this change, we need to update the other ones. So this one needs to be 1, and then all these other ones need to be -1. Because if we ever use the same dialogue object, we need to make sure we're resetting this information correctly. -1, -1, -1. All right. Good. On that front, let's... Ooh, shoot. Don't erase. I need to actually translate or move these values into the actual prefab again, which was down here somewhere in the screen sections. This one. So the small... Nope. This is not right. That's because we are in the wrong folder structure? How can we be in the wrong folder structure? Where is this? Oh, it's under front end prefabs. Prefabs front end section. Okay. Oh no, this is still the wrong one. Long form? Do I have the dialog box locked? I don't. Why is this data on the right not updating as I select different prefabs? Can I change this to show me only prefabs? Why is all of our data missing? This had the right data a moment ago. Is this locked? What's happening? I feel like this is not updating. It is not. It is not properly updating information. Okay. That's frustrating. I believe the values we had were -70, -78 for small. Oh, it's because I had changed some script stuff and Unity wanted to do an update, I guess? Sure. Fine. -70, -78. So yeah, until I had hit stop, it wasn't going to finish updating the script stuff, and so it wouldn't let me modify anything until that was done. Thanks, Unity. I appreciate you. I mean, it's probably required. I get it. I get it. But also, I just want to modify the things. Alright, give this another try. Does small get positioned correctly now? Also want to check to make sure the arrows are correct on heroes dialog boxes as well. Make sure we haven't broken something with our modifications there. Okay, that arrow is positioned correctly. Okay, that's positioned correctly. That's way off. Okay. Is this I think this might be a large? What line is this? I'm sure you do. No, this is supposed to be a medium. Okay. Alright, data's just wrong. Let's just try positioning it again. Arrow's in the right spot still, which is good. And it's trying to position it where I told it to. Oh, you know what? It's probably because we have a different anchor from what we did before. When we were setting these values up, I think we likely had it still set to top center. Oh, right. We can just modify it with these values just to be 100% sure that they're correct. -10. -78, it looks like, is going to be about the same on each of these. Okay, so we're going to make that update on the prefab, which is up here. And because we haven't modified any scripts, it'll let me make the modifications. So I'm going to guess it's going to be -78 on the Y for each one. And then what did I have in the X again? -10. Okay. Cool. How's that looking? It's fine. Okay, well, this arrow is very broken. Right, of course. In the same way, we all need to be setting the X value every time, because we've now modified the rotation at least once. We also need to set the rotation back to identity every other time. Much annoying. Okay. Cool. That should fix that. Will it let me progress forward? It will. So now for large. Because I've modified script, because I wasn't thinking, I won't be able to put these values in as easily. $55? I'm not sure each of these is the same X value away with these setups, but we can always refine these positions later. But 54 and -78 still looks right to me. And then if we ever want to have her speak outside of a cutscene, we'll have to have slightly offsetted Y values for all of these as well. I might be able to find an easier way to handle that, but for now we'll just assume that she always talks during cutscenes with the black bars. I need to find this prefab, and we're going to update this value here. Alright, let's see it all without me having to move or modify anything. If I end up not liking this, the other option is we could have the dialogue boxes anchored to Hero, but on flip sides. So Hero could talk from the top, and then we could have a dialogue box below, which is the goddess. We could try and make a little animation where Hero's like is holding the watch out in front of him. If I end up building a bunch of cutscenes like this and finding that the clock just feels annoying to build dialogue around. Oh, that's interesting. Seeing it in motion, it grows and shrinks from the center, which normally works because we always center align it to the top or to the bottom. This is the first time we've left aligned it. So realistically, it should be growing and shrinking from the left side of the dialogue box. I'm not fixing that right now. We will get these cutscenes up and running. That can be a polished thing. Let's go back to the assets. I think everything is in the right spot at the very least. So we should be able to switch her lines to be medium again instead of small, medium, large. Here. So she can do medium, medium. In terms of opening and closing, do close all here, stay open, stay open, stay open, close all. Okay, we're gonna do that setup, and then in the actual cutscene itself, I want to break this into two different dialogue advancements. We're gonna do 2 of them here and 4 of them here, and in between we're going to play icon reveal, I think is what I called it. We're going to look at an example. In boot intro, we only use this one other time, which is question icon on player. So we will do question icon on player. So this is kind of just like a confuse. Eventually, I think I'd like to have an animation to help sell this as well, but we're just going to see how this feels. Just to break up the dialogue a little bit. Because I feel like if we just have too much clicking through dialogue for too long, it gets boring. And just having like even the character move a little bit in the scene ends up like creating some visual interest that like helps just make things feel less stagnant. I don't know if that's a silly thing to say, but the movement makes the scene feel less stagnant. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but it's just tricky to figure out when and how to do that movement. Okay, great. Now I'm in a forest. What did she give me? A watch. It seems to tick down as I move, so we're going to need to have this filled in. This is a bug. I don't have pure ref up, but we have this track that it should be filled when we first start, and it is not. I wonder if that's to do with entering into a cutscene. I don't know. I got to figure that out because this should be filled, and then we need to figure out a way to have it tick down once after Hero moves in the cutscene. Might need to be a new type of sequence step. Yeah, I like the emotion icon. It's not a lot. Again, Hero could do some sort of motion there. We could also have Hero face the camera, potentially. Maybe move around enough that Hero's looking down for this cutscene. But sometimes Hero's going to be looking away. And this dialogue box is too big. So we need to change that to a large. Okay. That's working. And then the next cutscene we have is this one. which is also going to have the goddess speaking, but I think for this one we can do a top-line dialogue box, and it should work out okay. All right. This should be an ability script. Sorry, real quick, I want to try this. If we just change the normal patrol pathing for this slime... Oh my goodness, where is this? Where's the room? There we go. If we change this slime from using a patrol path to an ability script, and we have it be... Oh, I need to actually hook it up. Sorry, I got an exciting idea here, because right now when we move with the slime revealed, it's every time we take a step, the slime is also taking a step. But technically with this ability script system, we were able to have actions happen simultaneously. And I comment on the fact that we should be able to replace the patrol system with the ability script because it'll be more flexible, but I had not considered the fact that it'll also mean that outside of combat you'll be able to move freely without you having to pause every time the enemy moves. That's huge if that works. I think there's going to be some gotchas, but oh my, Unity is having a struggle right now. What did I do? Is it hitting a breakpoint or something? It is not. I'll try stopping the debugger. Maybe it's been connected for too long. Okay, so then... if we drag this up into here, I just want to check, how did the boar get set up? Did the boar have a patrol path? It did, but its patrol path was where it started, basically. And then it just does playful attack. But we did play with adding a movement for it. So if we just give this 13, 10. What does it do? What does this do? Oh, we're just about at time. Okay. Yeah, so we'll give this a quick test, and then we will call it for today. We'll be back tomorrow, though. Same time. Monday, we'll be doing a 2 to 4 and then 6 to 8 stream. I'm not sure what days I'm going to be doing like otherwise. I know that we want to do... Actually, I can pencil in another art stream with Drixie. We've talked about this, and I'm pretty sure Drixie would love to join me for another stream next Saturday from 3 to 5. But beyond that, I'm not sure what other days I'm going to stream. I think last year I was keeping at least a couple of days off stream. Yeah, this was technically a day off here because we didn't do that as a stream. Yeah, so realistically I was working every day, but some of them were just off-camera days. I don't know. I'll figure this out, and I'm going to try and update the schedule tomorrow morning. Maybe I'll just let it be flexible that I may end up canceling, but I'll at least pencil in all the days I think I might stream so that people have a general idea. This just breaks. Yeah, it just breaks. Okay. How did I have the enemy moving around in that scene? Oh, I messed up by not making a backup of this asset. because I do not have the original data. Oh wait, I streamed it. I can go look at the VOD and I can figure out what data I had put in here for this to work. But yeah, so anyways, tomorrow probably same kind of thing. Hopefully we can move forward with cutscenes. I'm gonna say that the dialogue with the goddess is probably good enough for now. I'm pretty happy with that. It's just able to be positioned in one of two locations, whether it's right aligned or if not right aligned, it'll default to above the clock. We have a couple of cutscenes I want to build in here. Then we get into the meat and potatoes of this one, which is going to be the next major cutscene. And I think figuring out how this theatrical ability script stuff that we were working on a few weeks ago, or honestly just last Sunday, how that's going to interact with this cutscene and making this section feel alive is going to be really tricky, but I think should be rewarding. And then after that, we get into picking up the first weapon ability with Slash and fighting a few slimes in here and actually able to win some battles. I need to figure out where I'm going to place some like item drops that I want the player to be able to find, and I'm going to need to start balancing the skill trees. So once we get through maybe another like honestly 3 or 4 cutscenes, I think, to kind of get through some of the initial tutorialization. Once we hit this cutscene with picking up the weapon, we can start also balancing combat. But I think tomorrow is probably going to still be a lot of cutscene building. And then hopefully we get to some combat balancing a little bit later in the week. I think that's everything. That's the outro. That's the rundown. I'll be back tomorrow, same time as today. That's pretty much it. 2 p.m. PST. For now, though, this will be Tolhi signing out. Later, folks.